Hello, I'm Pastor Thomas Bolt from Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church in Santa Barbara, California. Last week, we inaugurated this series of art exhibitions showcasing the experiences and history of African Americans in the United States. Last week, on Juneteenth, we focused on the work entitled A Visit from the Old Mistress by Winslow Homer, a painting that showcases the changed but tense relationships Homer witnessed between freed slaves and former slave owners. This week, we turn our attention to a more recent work by the artist Ulysses Davis. Its subject is one of the great American heroes, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Again, Professor Judy Larson has provided background and commentary on the work. Ulysses Davis was born in Fitzgerald, Georgia, a small rural town with a railroad depot. Needing additional income to support his family, Davis left school after the 4th grade and worked as an assistant to a blacksmith. In his spare time, he liked to whittle wood, often taking wood from the family woodpile and using his pocket knife to create his sculptures. When Davis was 29, he moved to Savannah, Georgia to take a job with the railroad. He settled there with his wife and 9 children. When he was laid off in 1950, he decided to open a barbershop in his neighborhood. He filled the walls and countertops with wood carvings. Some of his best-loved works continue to be his portraits of all the American presidents through George Bush and portraits of the leading figures of the civil rights movement. As you can imagine, lively discussions took place in his barbershop, which often centered on politics, civil liberties, and human rights. Davis continued to use wood as his medium and progressed from whittling wood in childhood to roughing out the basic sculptures with a hatchet or bandsaw, and then switched to chisels, blades, and metal tools for the finishing details. Some works received a coat of paint, but most were rubbed with a patina of shoe polish. It had to be an amazing shop to experience Davis's expressive small works on every wall and corner. The subject of Martin Luther King Jr. pays homage to a powerful black icon, likely carved in 1968, just after the political and religious leader was assassinated. The rich sheen of polished mahogany creates a distinguished portrait of this American hero. The emotions on his face reveal his strength and courage, but also there is sadness there. Eyes that are fixed on a hope and dream gaze out with longing and lament. The death of Martin Luther King Jr. shook the nation. Particularly African Americans had high hopes for freedom and justice for people of color. King's nonviolent stance and adherence to civil disobedience had caught the attention of America. But his death seemed a step back for African American liberties. Davis had no formal art training, but created sensitive, expressive portraits just as he saw them. His works are sought after today by collectors and museums because of the raw power the artist evoked in his simple but character-filled faces. Leave it to artists to bring to life those larger-than-life figures. Davis certainly was able to capture the humanity of his subjects. In our present age, too often we rush to demonize and see people as a threat to our sense of selfhood or a threat to our comfort. It is clear that few subjects arouse more alarm, shame, guilt, and even hubris as racism and civil rights. In a time when news outlets demonize people as if the ideals and the hopes of those who dream and long for real change, equity, and justice. In our time, when we are encouraged to seek our own comfort and disengage from the suffering of others, art can remind us of our shared humanity and our shared longing for peace and resolution. In faith, we step out with the words of Christ and the expressions of the faith from people like the Reverend Dr. King, not to see our own comfort and build up our complicity or maintain our complacency. Instead, Christ invites us to humanize one another and build up one another, so that all the world may await and hope and dream of the day when we are all free at last.